Hey everybody, Coach Toolshed here. Today's video is not going to be discussing Fallout 76 Collector's Edition power armor helmets growing mold inside of them and having to be recalled. No, that is not the purpose of today's video. But today's video is one that I did not want to make because I will tell you what, I am very upset by the news I received today. This is the worst gaming news that I personally have received in all of 2019. I feel as bad, if not a little bit worse, about this news than I felt when Todd Howard first went on stage at E3 last year to tell us about Fallout 76 and how disappointed I was by that announcement and everything that went along with it. Rightfully so, as it turned out. But the announcement we got today from Naughty Dog, for me and for some other people who I know, some other friends that I've played with, and I know a lot of people who are fans of this, there's a big announcement that they made today regarding The Last of Us Part 2, and that they will not be having a multiplayer PvP component for The Last of Us Part 2. And I have to say, this is extremely disappointing for me. I am not a huge PvP player. I do enjoy multiplayer for certain games, but one game which stands out to me, and one that I have been playing for years, and which is still very active to this day, is The Last of Us multiplayer. And I know a lot of people have never even touched The Last of Us multiplayer. Maybe you didn't even know about it. Maybe you thought it was just a story mode. But no, there is a really well-made 4v4 multiplayer mode that they had in The Last of Us Part 1. And you can go on there today and still find plenty of active matches. I just went on there today, found match after match. You can back in and out of lobbies. You're not going to see the same people. It's still very active. There's entire YouTube channels still dedicated to this game. Even the remaster, which came out 5 years ago. People are still playing this game. And I know when I made the video a few months back discussing how Naughty Dog was shutting down servers on PS3 for The Last of Us and Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3, I got a lot of response by people that were still playing on PS3 and were still very disappointed by that announcement. And of course, not that long ago, just here in September, they did officially shut down those servers on the PS3 for those games, and now we have this pretty disappointing. I'm very disappointed in this announcement. This is a game mode that I have sunk a lot of time into, and I have several friends that I met playing this game that I still play with other games to this day. People I was just playing with just last week that I met playing in The Last of Us. It is a phenomenal multiplayer experience if you've never tried it. If you like the thrill of the hunt and being hunted at the same time, this is a very intense 4v4 multiplayer game, and it's just I'm very disappointed that they decided to knock this out. And I also think that it deserves to be said that this is just sort of a black mark against what Sony's been doing, because one of the big criticisms that Sony has had with their exclusive titles in this generation is that, hey, yeah, you guys make a lot of good third-person action games, but you guys don't have much of a multiplayer presence. And one title that you could always point to and be like, oh, well, these have good multiplayer, you could point to the Naughty Dog games. Uncharted actually has a pretty fun multiplayer mode. And The Last of Us, like I said, The Last of Us multiplayer is by far, for me, my favorite multiplayer PvP experience that I think that I've ever played. And I don't know what else would even be in the conversation for me. I have played a ton of this game, and there's people that have played way more than me. There's people with maxed out level characters at 999, and if you do not understand how the leveling works in this game, that means that person has put in minimum 7,000 matches to get to that level. And there are still new people playing today. In the lobbies I was in today, it was a mixture of people with maxed out characters, people with lower level characters. I'm in there, and it's still a very active game. I do not understand this. They say the scope of the game has gotten too big, and I'm at the point now where I've said this before in other videos, but honestly, I cannot get excited for new games anymore. I was looking forward to this announcement. I was looking forward to The Last of Us 2, not so much for the story, but for the multiplayer. Because when the first game came out in 2013, I only played the multiplayer for months before I even thought about touching the story, because I was having so much fun playing the multiplayer. And now it's just I don't understand why Sony is just cutting out all the multiplayer out of their single player experiences. That is the one massive hole that Sony has in their lineup, is multiplayer. And the one studio that they had, which is arguably their highest profile studio, Naughty Dog, actually provided a at the very least, if you didn't like it, it's at least a competent multiplayer experience. Maybe it's not your cup of tea. I really enjoyed the game. But I guess what seems clear now is that Naughty Dog just is not interested in doing multiplayer headed forward. They're shutting down servers on their older games. So now pretty much the only thing you can play that's active, I guess, would be Uncharted 4 on the PS4 and The Last of Us Remastered. Those are the only games that even have active servers for a Naughty Dog game right now. It's really just disappointing. I thought for sure we would see this because they had already said over the last year that yes, they were working on the multiplayer component, and since it had a very popular multiplayer component for the first game, I'm completely dumbfounded by this announcement. And like I said, for me personally, this might not affect you at all, but for me, this is a very significant disappointment as far as gaming goes. And quite honestly, when it comes to Naughty Dog, over the last couple of years, I really don't have too much confidence in what they've been doing. I was one of the last season passes I ever bought was back in 2016 for Uncharted 4, and I was extremely disappointed because maybe you're not aware, if you bought the season pass when Uncharted 4 first came out, you didn't actually ever receive any Uncharted 4 DLC. Instead, what they did later on was they made a standalone game called Lost Legacy, starring different characters from the series. It was not starring Nathan Drake or anything like that. It was not a continuation of the Uncharted 4 story per se. It was just a new story involving some previous characters that are there. Some of them from Uncharted 4, some of them from previous games. And it told a whole new story, and actually the game wasn't even that bad. But the point is, if you actually bought the season pass for Uncharted 4, you didn't get any Uncharted 4 DLC whatsoever as part of that package. And that kind of just went under the radar. It's something that has kind of been sticking in my craw for a while when it comes to Naughty Dog, is that that just kind of gets swept under the rug by the entire industry. Nobody talks about that fact that they're just like, oh yeah, well, we're making this other game. Well, what if I didn't want that other game? What if I actually wanted content for the game that I purchased? Surprise, surprise, you get nothing. And nobody ever says anything about it. That's something that still sticks sore with me when it comes to Naughty Dog. And now with this announcement today, it's just another example of a game that months before it even comes out, I'm already disappointed by it because of an announcement that the developer makes, making a change in the series. And I know that they've only had one game before that, but Naughty Dog as a developer does have a track record going back Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, Uncharted 4, The Last of Us. They put multiplayer in their games. That's kind of what they've done now for the entire decade. So this announcement took me totally by surprise today, especially because Naughty Dog themselves have pretty much said over the last year that yes, they were working on multiplayer. And so this just took me totally by surprise. It might take you by surprise. Again, this might not affect you in any way. Maybe you don't care about PlayStation or The Last of Us or anything. This maybe doesn't affect you in any way, shape, or form. But anyway, that's it from me, Coach Toolshed. Let me know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. Please subscribe if you want to stay in tune with the channel headed forward. And as always, keep it turned to 11. Damn it, Naughty Dog. Come on!